Welcome back to another episode of Télévision Éducative. Tonight, I'll show you how dreams are prepared. People think it's a very simple and easy process, but it's a bit more complicated than that.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Screen Spell, a special podcast series on digital addiction. And I am Alina Yin. I will be your co-host along with teacher Huang. And this is a conclusion to our series. This is our last episode. And for the last episode, we actually wanted to discuss the lawsuit against social media giants, Meta, Facebook. There are many moving parts, and to start the conversation off, we're actually going to play a clip from our Attorney General, our California State Attorney General, Rob Bonta, leading this press conference that was on October 24th, 2023. We will have the link in the show notes as well. And here our AG Bonta will be going over the lawsuit, what it entails, and certain aspects that they are pursuing to prove that these social media companies knew what they were doing this whole entire time. And without further ado, here we are with the press conference.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, and appreciate your presence for our announcement today of our lawsuit against social media giant Meta. Together, and I'm very proud that I can use that word, together with a bipartisan group of state attorneys general, we're suing Meta. Attorneys general from across the nation, multi-state, bipartisan, who are coming together to hold Meta accountable and protect the health and safety of our children. We are suing Meta, the umbrella company for Facebook, Instagram, and other popular platforms, for violating federal and state laws, including the following three laws that we're focusing on: the Federal Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, California's Unfair Competition Law, and California's false advertising law. I'm co-leading this lawsuit, and I'm proud to stand alongside my colleagues in sister states announcing today's very important action. The breadth and commitment of our coalition underscores what a tremendous national concern we have before us today. This is a national issue requiring and deserving of a national response, and that's what you have on full display today. AGs from across the nation rising up to address this issue. Before I get into the specifics, though, I first want to briefly acknowledge the members of my consumer protection section, who I'm very proud of, grateful for, who've been working overtime around the clock to get us to where we are today. We filed our complaint today in the Northern District of California. No small feat to get this done. Here is the complaint. It is a robust and fact-filled complaint full of allegations against Meta, and that is now officially filed here in the Northern District of California, and we've been assigned Judge Rogers as part of the multi-district litigation. I want to thank Deputy Attorneys General Joshua Olszewski, Jubileer, Megan O'Neill, and Marissa Roy, an incredible team. Again, working overtime, working with our partners and team members across the country. I want to thank our analysts, Jake Fernandez, Alonso Gomez, and Miguel Ortiz, for their incredible work and commitment to this effort. I want to thank Supervising Deputy Attorney General Bernard Eskandari, as well as Senior Assistant Attorney General Nick Akers, and Special Assistant Attorney General Ellie Bloom. And here are some of my incredible team members here who got us to where we are today. Thank you all. I'm grateful for your service. We're here today because we are facing, as I mentioned, a problem of national scope. The social media company Meta has been and is currently putting our children in serious danger. Period. Full stop. A danger our kids carry with them just about everywhere they go. In their backpacks, in their pockets, and glued to their hands, to school, to dinner, and even to bed. Meta's suite of platforms, including Instagram and Facebook, are giants of the social media world, virtually omnipresent. In the US, Facebook has more than 240 million users, and Instagram has 160 million. The latter is particularly popular with young users, Instagram. In 2022, 62% of US teens said they used a photo and video-based app. The vast majority of adults are guilty of using, maybe even overusing social media. I use social media, and I get just how integrated into our lives these products can be and are. But what's scary is how much our kids are using these apps, and even more so the detrimental effect it's having on them. And that detrimental effect is not a theory or a hypothesis, a belief of what could be. It is known. It is a fact, the detriment to our children. Social media has fundamentally altered the psychological and social world that our children inhabit. 35% of all U.S. teens say they, quote, almost constantly, end quote, use one or more of the top 5 social media platforms, including Instagram and Facebook. Intuitively, I think we all know that's not good. As a dad, that's not what I want for my kids, nor anything I want for any of your kids, of our kids here in California and in the U.S. But it's not just intuition. We have data to prove this is not good. This past May, the U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory warning that adolescents who spend more than 3 hours per day on social media face double the risk of experiencing poor mental health outcomes, including symptoms of depression and symptoms of anxiety. Sadly, in 2021, 8th and 10th graders were found to spend an average of 3.5 hours per day on social media. That's just a small window into this enormous problem. More time on social media tends to be correlated with depression, anxiety, body image issues, susceptibility to addiction, and interference with daily life, including learning. Every additional hour young people spend on social media is associated with an increased severity in symptoms of depression. Excessive and problematic social media use has been linked to sleep problems, attention problems, and feelings of exclusion among young people. As if being young isn't hard enough. And this is the painful part. Everything I just said, Meta knows all of this. Meta has the evidence. It has the information. It has the data at its fingertips and chose to disregard it. All to promote their products, increase engagement by users, and really driving this to make bigger profits. Knowingly harmed children to make bigger profits. So our children are the ones suffering, their health, their well-being. Meta has harnessed its extraordinary innovation and technology to lure youth and teens to maximize use of its products. In seeking to bolster profits, Meta has repeatedly misled the public about the substantial dangers of its products. It has concealed the ways in which Instagram and Facebook exploit and manipulate its most vulnerable consumers, teenagers and children. We know, thanks to our investigation, as well as disclosures by former insiders, that the company knows the following. Instagram is harmful to a significant percentage of teenagers, especially teen girls. They have research that found that 13.5% of teen girls on Instagram say the platform makes thoughts of suicide and self-injury worse. That 17% say it makes eating issues worse, and 32% say it makes body image worse. Meta has internal warnings that certain key features can push users into harmful content. All this they knew. Our investigation has shown that Instagram in particular includes design features that are harmful to our young people. Features that unscrupulously induce extended and habitual use of Instagram by exploiting known psychological vulnerabilities in developing brains. They want you to use Instagram as much as possible and stay on as long as possible. Some of the psychological vulnerabilities in developing brains, such as body dysmorphic filters that show how you could look with plastic surgery. That is a feature. What you might look like with plastic surgery. Use the filter and see. For children, they use alerts with beeps, lights, and bright vibrations that go off during the school day when you should be learning, through the night when you should be sleeping. They have an infinite scroll that can suck you in for hours. Ephemeral content that can only be seen for a short period of time, like Instagram stories, which disappear after 24 hours. It makes you want to check it before it goes away. Popularity metrics, the number of likes, comments, and shares you get. Algorithms that purposefully select and serve content to manipulate dopamine hits. Not organic flow of content. Algorithmically guided content for that individual to keep them on longer and more frequently. We have evidence that Meta knew the like button leads teenagers to compulsively engage with the platform. Evidence that they discussed the potential negative impact it could have and decided not to do away with it, to keep it after engaging, intentionally discussing it internally. We have internal documents that include studies and reports discussing the harmful effects of Meta's products and the mental health problems they can cause young users. We know that Meta knows that Instagram is, quote, addicting. They use that word, addicting, internally. It's in their own internal documents. Not only did Meta know all of this and more, they lied about it. They knew and they lied. They lied to its users. They lied to parents. They lied to you and to me, to all of us. CEO and founder Mark Zuckerberg testified to Congress right before the leaders of our nation and said Meta doesn't design its products to be addictive, that Instagram doesn't harm children. That was his testimony. Instagram president Adam Mosseri testified to Congress that Instagram isn't addictive. He was on message. He told reporters that research he's seen suggests the app's effects on teenage well-being is likely quite small, was his quote. Meta as a company has put out a number of public statements that appear to contradict its own internal research about the effect of Instagram on children. So remember, we have Mr. Mosseri, Mr. Zuckerberg telling Congress their product is not addictive, and behind closed doors when no one's looking, when they're talking to each other, they use that very word, addictive. In fact, our investigation has found instances where the company acknowledged internally that it had misled the public. Meta's conduct is deceitful, it is dangerous, and as we make clear in our lawsuit filed today, it is illegal. Let's talk about our lawsuit for a moment. Our lawsuit alleges that Meta violated the Federal Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, called COPPA for short, and numerous state consumer protection laws, including chief among them California's unfair competition law and our false advertising law. Those are the three main claims. COPPA helps to regulate online services used by children under 13, so for our youngest, most vulnerable children. While officially Instagram and Facebook don't allow users under 13, we have evidence that Meta is well aware that they do actually have users under 13. We allege that the company is unlawfully collecting personal information from those children under 13. California's unfair competition law prohibits unlawful, unfair, and fraudulent business practices. California's false advertising law prohibits false and misleading advertising. You just got an example of the types of falsehoods, deception, lies that Meta has been pushing out into the public. We think it's clear that Meta knew about and denied the harms that can come from young people using their platforms. Our lawsuit alleges that Meta's scheme to exploit young users includes creating a business model focused on maximizing young users' time on the platform, employing harmful and psychologically manipulative platform features, while at the same time misleading young users, their families, and the public about the safety of those features. Publishing reports purporting to show misleadingly low rates of user harms. And in spite of the overwhelming evidence, linking its platforms to young user harms, refusing to address those harms, not doing anything, while continuing to conceal and downplay its platform's adverse effects. As a dad of 3, I'm angered and horrified by what our investigation turned up. As AG, I, along with my colleagues across the country, are taking action to do something about it. Because it's clear that the law has been violated. It's clear that Meta has deliberately deceived users and harmed our children and teens. Why? To pad the corporate bottom line. And we're saying no more. I refuse to allow Meta to trample on our children's mental and physical health, all to promote its products and increase its profits. I refuse to allow the company to mislead users and their families or feign ignorance of the harm it is knowingly causing. I refuse to let Meta continue business as usual when that business is harming our children. So together with my fellow state AGs, we will hold Meta to account, stop its dangerous practices, and stop its deceit, its lies. While today's announcement is about Meta, this is just one part of what's an ongoing inquiry into the harms that social media platforms are causing to our children and teens. Today, we draw the line. We must protect our children online. We will not back down from this very important fight.
How did that make you feel?
I think that it's pretty admirable that people in such high positions are able to recognize mental health and digital addiction and social media abuse as such an important topic in today's history, because it really is. It has such a big impact on how young people are growing and what kind of media and information they're exposed to during that stage of adolescence.
It's I would say maybe like validating is a word I would use to finally see it at this level of government, and that there's like 44 other states joining in this lawsuit. And so things are happening. That means like, the adults are recognizing that, yes, we have a problem. And this is their job. Like their job is supposed to, as adults with all the rights, it's their job to protect the children who cannot vote yet.
That was
So
a good answer. That was like a really good answer.
but well, that's my millennial answer. That's me answering to you, Deetra. I'm listening to you. Let's do this podcast. So everybody can like understand that also, I think you're very smart and you're very serious about your work. And what you're saying and like the research that you've put into this. And I've learned a lot from your writing and the research and all the different things that you gathered. I wasn't doing that when I was your age. I was not doing that. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. I'm glad that that's happening, but it's also just the beginning, and we have to all keep paying attention to this, and actually see what happens with these lawsuits. All right, take us to our next clip.
Social media has fundamentally altered the psychological and social world that our children inhabit. 35% of all U.S. teens say they, quote, almost constantly, end quote, use one or more of the top 5 social media platforms, including Instagram and Facebook.
So why did you select that clip?
That one just stuck out to me because of the statistic he pointed out. And I find it really interesting that he's able to pinpoint what exactly is the problem and how it affects people today.
Are you one of the, I guess from your observations, small sample size, but still from your observations, do you and your peers, you all use those top 5 social media companies that he
Oh,
mentioned, or
yeah.
platforms, he said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you use all 5 of them, or do you use like, which ones do you use? Like how many
I
of?
use Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
Oh,
But I know a
wait,
lot of my other friends use Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and I
Snapchat.
think that's it. Yeah.
You don't use TikTok?
Oh, I use TikTok, yeah.
I don't know why my voice sounded like a rooster for a minute.
No.
Um, yeah. Okay, TikTok and Instagram. And if I remember correctly, you said like TikTok you use for learning or like advice videos, and then Instagram is more of like stories with your friends. Is that right? Or did I
Yeah.
make that up?
No, that's basically it, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I use Instagram and TikTok. And I feel like, well, actually, the jury's still out on LinkedIn. I'm not sure like what that is. It's like kind of social platform, but it's also like a resume job platform. Um, Interesting space. Anyways, okay, so next, do you have one more clip for us? Is this the last one or?
Yes, I think it was the last one.
Okay, all right, let's hear it.
More time on social media tends to be correlated with depression, anxiety, body image issues, susceptibility to addiction, and interference with daily life, including learning. Every additional hour young people spend on social media is associated with an increased severity in symptoms of depression. Excessive and problematic social media use has been linked to sleep problems, attention problems, and feelings of exclusion among young people. As if being young isn't hard enough.
Deep cuts, man.
I know, right?
Being young is so hard. I remember. It's not actually no. I feel like your generation has it way harder than my generation did at that age. At that space and time too.
Hmm.
Yeah. We live in a different world. Um yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
I really like that last sentence. But other than that, I just really like how you led up to it and then left it off.
Mic drop moment. And yeah, it is kind of cool to see alongside, from what year did you start the idea and research for this podcast?
I think maybe 2 years ago in spring,
In the spring. So
maybe
2021
March.
or 2020? No,
I'd have to look
21.
back. I think it's 2021.
Yeah. So 2021. And I also remember like right before this podcast, I had done the youth commission uh youth commission interview with Nicole too, former youth commissioner. And I put a clip. 2022 was 2022. Okay. Well, you know what? Space time since 2020, who knows? It's just
Mhm.
all warped.
Yeah.
What is real? What is time? Um, but I remember interviewing the youth commission, and Nicole was a part of um, that interview. And in the interview, I can't remember if it was the beginning. I think it was in the beginning where I put in a clip of the congressional hearing by Francis, I forget last name. Francis Hagen?
Oh yeah, the Facebook whistleblower.
Yes. And watching that, and then, fast track to you, and you're researching and doing this podcast, and like in the middle of researching, like almost towards the end, we find out about the lawsuit. And then, marking that lawsuit down. And at that time, it was just Seattle. It was just the
Hmm.
Seattle School District. And then I don't know how many more months um, well, I don't know how many months, but afterwards. And then here we are now. And it's like now it's all the way in California. It's at a state level. There's like 44 other states. It's like getting pretty serious in a not it's kind of short amount of time, like 1 year, 2 years, right? Do you feel that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like your podcast is ending and this is like happening and it just seems very of the zeitgeist moment in like some I feel like Gen Z movements. um
I mean, it talks about advertisement and dual incomes.
well, why don't you tell me what dual incomes is?
That's like when both parents are making an income, and
Mhm.
then how it leads to smaller family sizes, having children later in life, and then having more income for kids to be able to buy stuff. And then with the ads, that kind of plays a role in how kids are like, "Oh, mom, can you buy me this?" And then the mom's like, "Sure." So all those advertisements get money.
Mm.
I think we
So
can
wait,
delete that.
so they're targeting dual income households with specific advertisements.
Oh no. They're
No.
advertising like to the kids. They spend about $200 billion each year
Mm-hmm.
on advertisements to children and teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And then those kids are able to ask their parents for stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how they get even more money from those advertisements.
Even more money because
The
the parents will
companies.
buy it for them.
Yes.
Hmm. I think that's kind of interesting because it is. What was the research? Where was this research from again?
This is from the American Psychological Association.
Oh, the APA. They're quite serious. um, yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Um, what other? What was the other thing that you mentioned? It wasn't dual income, but it was something else.
There was surveillance advertising.
Surveillance advertising. Okay, you can go ahead and okay, what is surveillance advertising in your own words?
Surveillance advertising is when companies are using micro-targeting to target specifically children and teenagers by using, as you mentioned before, advertisement that caters to their interests and sort of sells them stuff based on those interests that they don't really need. And it does base a lot of their information on demographics, behaviors, and characteristics of their target population.
That, and then what other, so we've got surveillance advertising and dual income tactics. What else have we got?
We have changes that were made to make the web safer for youth. And the first thing that comes to mind is COPPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which we talked about before. And this act requires that websites explain their privacy policies and get parental consent before collecting any personal information from children under the age of 13.
So, did you have a phone before 13?
Yeah, I had a phone, I think, maybe when I was 12.
12.
7th grade. I think I
Okay.
was 12.
Do you ever remember getting like a tell your parent or parental, like how does parental consent looks, what does it look like implemented?
I don't really know. I forgot about that.
You
But it
never,
might
do
have,
you remember seeing it?
no,
No. Okay.
but it was like a long time ago. So maybe I did and I just
Mm-hmm.
forgot. It might have been like asking for your birthday and an
Mm-hmm.
email,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just put a fake birthday in and they don't ask about any more information. So that's how you can get access to that when you're
Yeah.
really young without your
Uh-huh.
parents knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that flaw in just asking for the birthdays.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what I did when I was, I think, like back in my day, it was chat rooms.
Oh my gosh. Because
Summing it
there
up.
is like Omegle we can talk about.
Huh?
Omegle. Omegle.
O O M?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
Omegle.
No, what's
Omegle.
that?
That's like it used to be a popular video chat site
Mm-hmm.
that randomly pairs users that can chat online. So that's when we were talking about chat rooms that kind of popped in my head. And
Oh.
it's where they can talk to random strangers via text, video,
Mm-hmm.
and they do have both feature. But it is banned now because a lot of users claimed abuse because
Uh-huh.
when the site was ongoing, it didn't have a lot of moderation and didn't require registration or age verification.
Mm-hmm.
So people could like fake their birthdays,
Yeah.
and it makes younger people a potential target for online abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing a lot of videos of it on TikTok, especially during the COVID pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
where people would post videos talking about how Omegle promotes sexually explicit videos and live streams
Mm-hmm.
that involve minors where they're like 7 or 8 years old, and they spread across the site. And that kind of led to the investigations into online child abuse and extremist views and racism and cyberbullying.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, a lot of schools and police and government in a lot of countries issued warnings about Omegle,
Mm-hmm.
where people are able to, or people were highly likely to encounter online grooming and violence on that site. So
Mm-hmm.
that is why it's kind of banned now,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really see it as often
Yeah.
because of those regulations.
Regulations to protect children. But yeah, you said it happened in 2020. That was like the peak moment.
That was the peak moment because nobody could go out, so we
Mm-hmm.
all just like focused more on entertainment online
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as a replacement.
Yeah. And also, we didn't know what was happening. It
Mm-hmm.
was scary times.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I remember news about this, but it was just a flash within my feed. It wasn't like something that I think I looked into. And part of it just probably there was like a lot of things going on. And so I wasn't really absorbing the news. I was absorbing some news, but like I was also busy trying to keep my parents safe, trying to stay
Hmm.
safe, and like, all these precautions.
Yeah.
And so it completely slipped under the radar. And so I feel like this is not the first time I'm hearing about it, but hearing about it now, um, how awful that happened, and during like a crisis, and people maybe not um, being aware of the impact of releasing technology without guidelines or safety measures in place. And that is how harm is caused and introduced into the community. And the conversation also is like, we're still having it because like, no, now it's AI. Um, but it's very much the wild, wild west. No one knows what's going on. They have not made any laws yet. And the lawsuits are just beginning. So we're like at the very beginning of like, oh, how do we regulate this giant, web universe, and make sure that people are safe and not addicted or becoming depressed, or the variety of other ailments that we've discussed for the last like 5 episodes, that can happen to you from using this device and using this technology. So, what can we do to stay safe in the interim while the state and the government is trying to figure this out?
Mm, I would say keeping up with the legal measures that are in place and what rights users have as users for companies to protect themselves. So following companies following that COPPA guideline or the California Age Appropriate Design Code to make sure that youth and adolescents are able to keep away from the dark corners of the internet.
Hmm.
But there is that responsibility for parents over their teens to be able to sort of monitor their internet use to make sure that they're being safe, while also respecting, teens' boundaries, because that is like a phase where a lot of rebellious teenagers.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
But but yeah, being aware of your rights and maybe even reading the terms and conditions.
Just maybe.
But yeah.
But they don't have to do it by themselves. There are resources now.
Hmm.
And like I think the Center for Humane, that's Tristan's
Center
company.
for Humane Technology.
Yeah, which we'll put in the show notes. So they have a podcast as well, and they've been talking about it for around as long around the time of the congressional hearing, and they put out that documentary that you watched recently in class in school.
Mhm.
And so they're a great resource. And then a new one that I found is called The Markup. And it is very thorough journalism with like so many site sources cited, so many sources cited. And they actually link things to the terms and conditions and the fine print. And so there's like different ways to read an article on their website. Like you can just read a regular article, or you can also click on the footnotes and it'll say like, oh, here's all of the research that we did, or here is the scientific study that we did using the scientific method. And like they show you, it's like show your work when you're doing math.
Mm.
So they show you all of the work in a way that you can actually learn to find credible information on your own using proper platforms and stuff. And so it's a really informative, and I think, I don't know if it's a new type of journalism, but it's new to me. And that way, you don't just like read the news and get depressed and feel hopeless. There is a lot that you can do about these things that are happening to you, to us. And yeah, and part of that is reading the terms and condition and attending a city council meeting. um, any other tips? Anything that you picked up, during the recording of this series that has like helped you?
I personally have been using my phone a lot less. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we forgot to do our Wednesday checks of our screen time,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but most of the time I'm not following that. Like I did not go under an hour for social media. Something I am not proud of, but overall my screen time has decreased.
Yeah. No, you know what? The same. Like I didn't list I did not I broke the rule every day. But I did have a decrease over time over like the last like 6, 7, 8 week period. So I was proud of that. And also it's just been like, every time I do reach for my phone, I just think of our conversations. I was like, no, I had to do it for teacher. But it really depends on like it's very much influenced by environmental factors.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot going on around me and just even in San Jose, but like also in the world. And I would say the things that are happening are sometimes, dysregulating. And so there was like maybe in like the last 4 weeks I've had trouble sleeping. Um, Part of it I think was I was drinking too much tea
Mm.
and I needed to cut back on caffeine. But there was just like one night out of like the last month where I just could not sleep until like 4 in the morning. And of course, what
Oh
did
my
I do?
gosh.
I just like was scrolling on my phone because I couldn't sleep. And what I was doing was not helping. But it was also just like it was just a blah day. And then I was like, oh, okay, I gotta like restart because when it comes to um changing a habit that you've been so used to, thankfully not for like 10 years or anything like that,
Mhm.
because we haven't had these most addictive platforms for that long, thank goodness. But and also, the pandemic really did change people's behavior with technology and their dependence on it, both like through school and work with Zoom. And then, what was like, we only did screen time for fun became we did screen time for work. And we still did screen time for fun, but like maybe we did extra screen time for fun because there was so much screen time for work.
Mm.
And it's just a screen time like hurricane of things. um But some of us are trying to snap out of it. And even though it was just like, I don't know, what would you say, like 2 years and then it started easing off? Or how long did that period feel for you, like the screen time overload?
Oh, probably 2 years is good. Yeah.
2 years. 2 years.
Hmm.
Yeah. I would say like 2 years was pretty intense. And so say like we got really addicted in those 2 years, but it's only
Hmm.
2 years, but still for the 2 years that it was, um, it's still hard because we both broke the rule, but we at least reduced our screen time. So it is possible
Hmm.
to wean off. And it's just like an everyday thing. Like you have to press reset. Some days are good and some days are bad, but that doesn't matter how many good or bad days, is that always the next day you try again to use less and be
That's very
outside.
that is very inspirational.
um cool. Okay, and then I guess I'm really glad to hear that it was less for you and that
Hmm.
we both did better. And I don't know if I picked up any like new habits. Oh, I started doing social media after 10 a.m.
Mm.
So I just like waited. So it wasn't the first thing in the morning, but I know it's not that far away. It's only at 10 a.m. So it's like kind of close. And so there's less urgency to break it because I know that it is coming. And then because some of it is good news, and like I follow a lot of different things, and so it is a really good just like quick check-in on what's happening. And like funny cat videos. I've been going extra hard on the kitten videos. And so I've been getting a lot of cute ones and like just animal video. I love animal videos. And so a mix of both. And so I just partake in it in the morning like it's a morning news. And then I don't check it again until like around 5 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
And I just started doing that. I would say a few days ago consistently, but I was always trying, like, I do one day and then like 3 days later I try again. And so I was working on it, but it's gotten to a point where it has its own like kind of rhythm. And that has helped a lot with the feeling of like getting sucked into some kind of channel and then feeling like drained and depressed afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know I have a time limit, and sometimes I also make like a little tab of like favorite accounts that I like to check in with, so I don't have to like scroll to find them. I just go to the channel that's already like a curated feed of what I'm looking for. So those are two things that I've done that seems to be helping. Cool. Okay, so I listened a couple times to the inner child meditation. It's really good. And I'm really excited to leave off on that one. And yeah, special thanks to our listeners. And we'd love to, there's at least if you're on Spotify, there is that interaction. What do you think of this episode? Feel free to send us messages. Would love to see them. And yeah, Dietra, what are your final words?
We want to thank our listeners for joining us on this journey, and we encourage you to share this podcast with your friends and family who may be struggling with digital addiction. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of our podcast.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Hi, I'm Rashmi, and I'll be leading you through an inner child meditation today. So let's get started by simply finding a posture that works for you. This can be lying down, staying seated, or maybe even standing up. Getting nice and comfortable. And as you're ready, taking a nice deep inhale through the nose, feeling the belly rise. Exhaling out of the nose or mouth. Go ahead and do this 2 more times at your own pace. Inhaling, feeling the belly rise. And slowly exhaling, feeling the belly fall. And as you're ready, gently bringing both hands to the heart and starting to think of your child self. And if this is difficult for you, maybe just thinking of anyone or anything that you care about. This can be a pet, or maybe another child in your life. This can also be a plant or the whole earth. And as you start to think about this thing that brings you some warmth and care, start to connect with your heart. Giving this inner child or this object of your attention as much love and care as possible. And as firmly or gently as you'd like, pressing both of your palms onto your heart and gently making some circles here. They can be big circles or small circles, just bringing a little bit of warmth to your heart. Breathing deeply as you do this, continuing to give that love and care to this inner child or object of your affection, letting it know that you're here for it at any time. And if it feels okay to you, maybe imagining giving a big hug to this object of your affection. And as you're ready, slowly bringing your arms to the side, relaxing completely, taking a nice deep inhale through the nose, feeling the belly rise. Exhaling out of the nose, knowing that you can come back to any of these practices whenever you need them. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take good care of yourself.